Friday, my friends. May 1st today. I'm here again with Matt, one of our white belts here at the Academy. And today's focus, we are planning to go over some top side control. A lot of the previous lessons have been a little bit of our passing focused, and passing the guard, half guard, then into side control. And Half has also talked about a few submissions from the mount. So side control is kind of a good, I think, chapter to talk about today, where it can kind of connect a lot of these dots. So with that being said, I want to start off with a little drill here, kind of incorporating some hip work, and it's going to focus on a few different ways that are good controlling points for the side control position. All right, so I'm going to start off here with Matt facing the head towards the camera. Go ahead and keep going a little bit. Okay, one of the passes that we talked about in the previous lesson ended up in this variation of the side control here. So I have an underhook on the opposite side, on the far side. If it's like no gi, I can just cup on the shoulder. If I have the gi, I can also look for that collar. Okay, 4 fingers in the collar. Okay, the idea here on this kind of control is to be under his near side arm, getting my hip under in between his elbow and his rib there. That's kind of an important detail that I like to have there as well. Okay, I want to avoid his ability to have his elbow inside for the most part, because if he has his elbow inside, now he has framing potential where he can frame and hip escape away. Go ahead and hip escape a little bit away right there, making it better for him, worse for me. Nice. Return. All right, so controlling the elbow. I got my hip in between the elbow and the rib there, and I'm also overwrapping his arm. So I'm not kind of right here. I'm going over. Okay. Now, in this idea, I want to kind of maximize any excess space. So I don't want to have my hip too far away. I want to find a nice base point. Maybe even kind of use my body, like my ribs and my hip area, to kind of lift him up a little bit on his side and get under this near side shoulder here. So that makes it a little bit more tighter of a position, harder for him to recover here. So I'm going to do a little drill here, starting from this position. And I'm going to transition a little bit through the different side controls. So I control his elbow. I'm going to switch my feet, get on the balls of my feet, drive, and now I transition onto my knees. This hand from the elbow is going to come across. First option, I can go into shoulder pressure, head control. Okay, and I can control here. I can then keep going, pull his shoulder off the mat a little bit, control over the shoulder here. I'm going to rotate a little bit. Okay, and if we have the gi, I would like to grab the belt. Okay, and now this hand can go a little farther and block that hip, the near side leg. Okay, so this is another control point from here. All right, from here, if I want to continue on, I can focus on the inside of that pant leg, control the gi on the inside of the pant leg. I'm still holding the belt, okay, and then I can switch my hips. But before I switch my hips, there's a little detail I like to do here, especially if guys have like long torsos, is I'll come over his arm a little bit, and then I'll slide the arm down a little bit over his bicep, still controlling his arm. But that allows me to focus a little bit more my weight around his hip. So here, so this is kind of the third hip control, side control position from here. And we have attacks from all these positions, so from here I can start setting up mounts and whatnot. Okay, so if I rewind, I go back onto my knees, I underhook, cross face. All right, and if I want to go to that original position, trap the shoulder, find his tricep elbow on the balls of my feet, and I'm right back in this side control here. Each side control has a benefit at a certain time. So there's certain benefits from being here, certain benefits from being here, certain benefits from being here, and then certain benefits from being here. I think all these have a nice, they all have a plus side to it for sure. Okay, so being able to transition smoothly without giving too much unnecessary space in between positions is important. Okay, because while we're on top, people will be looking to escape and contest our controls. Okay, so from here, a couple of little quick submissions, like from this case, just to give you guys an idea, is if I have this control here, I can slide up by his wrist, push his wrist down. And a basic lock here that we kind of start off with is I'll pass the other leg over, and I'm looking to get the inside of my knee right on his wrist. Okay, so I'll be here, I bring his wrist down, I push it down, I send the inside of my leg right over his wrist. This leg is now very important. If this leg is too high under his shoulder, it's hard to get the submission. The leg, his wrist goes all the way to the ground and you don't get any tap. So I'm here, find the wrist, I push, I pass the leg over. Now going back to that bottom leg, it's right under his elbow. It's not under his shoulder, but it's right under the elbow. His wrist, the inside of his wrist joint, is literally glued to the back of my knee, the bend of my knee. And I have a 90-degree bend on that back leg, so his wrist cannot just run free. Now this hand here is gonna go on his shoulder, and I just scissor my legs here, and he'll tap. So I'm making his arm nice and straight. The idea, let's do a little more here, champ. The idea is that I'm gonna put his elbow right on my thigh here, just like this. And if I put weight on his wrist, if I have his elbow on the thigh, and I put weight on his wrist and his shoulder, he's gonna tap. So from the side control position, I'm here, I find the wrist, I'm here, and I'm here, and the submission comes. Okay? In process of going for this submission here, his arm can turn a few different ways. One is north, towards his head, and that's when I'm gonna intercept it. If we slide a little bit more down here towards the camera, cool. That's when I'm gonna intercept it with my top leg here, grabbing it, locking a figure four, and then going for an Americana using the legs. Okay, so I'm here in the side control. I put a little bit of weight, find his wrist, boom, I drive. First one, I find the bend of my knee right over his wrist. Take a moment, find the placement, because if the bottom leg is too far under his shoulder, again, look, his wrist is touching the mat and there's no submission. It's important that the bottom leg goes right under the elbow, like right there. So then I trap the hand, and then he'll tap here. In the process of going for that one, I go here, he goes up, and you trap the Americana. Again, with the bend of my knee. Always with the bend of your knee here. A nice figure four that makes it hard for him to undo his arm. And to fully secure it, I'll lock my own figure four, and that fully locks his arm in place here. And then I can start driving my hips forward, and I'll get the shoulder lock. The third sequence that we do from here is a drive, and he brings his hand down south towards his hips and towards his legs. So I'm not gonna be able to catch it, obviously, with the top leg, with the north side leg, but now he's gonna open himself up for like a reverse triangle. So I'm gonna block his face here, I pass my other leg over, and I lock a figure four there. So this position will be good now to start attacking his arm with like natural Americanas here, or even Kimuras here. Okay? So, let's go a little bit more down. Camera. So from this control here, those are three submissions that we use to kind of start things off. One, trap here, finish. Two, on the second one, his hand goes north. Trap it with the top leg. It's very hard, my hips are behind his elbow, so it's very hard for him to retract his arm that's trapped. And I'm gonna fully secure the position with my own figure four lock. And now drive the hip forward. On the third one, he goes the opposite direction, so I trap the arm with my legs, buy myself some time. If I just have everything loose, as I'm going here, it's possibly pulls his own arm out and clears the arm. So I'll trap here a little bit. I'll bring my weight forward. If my head was inside his arm, it's even better. So if I have a choice to have his hand here or have his hand here, I'd much rather have it in this position here, using my neck to trap the wrist and forearm. And now I pass the leg over. Here, slide into what we call a reverse triangle. And in this position here, I have a lot of upper body control, obviously. I can start reverse arm bar. I can go Americana, or I can go Kimura. All off that reverse triangle. All right. So now let's transition a little bit here. We're in this original side control. what's gonna make me wanna transition? Well, if he starts framing a lot right here, it's gonna be irritating on my neck. And if I stay here and he starts getting a good effective frame, it's possibly he could just let go of my head and I start losing the control of the position. So before he gets effective with it, he might frame here, I'm gonna look down and away. That'll kind of protect my softer tissue in my neck area, my soft one. So I look down and away, I control that elbow, and again, we're gonna transition to that side control here now. So from here, you can start going right into your shoulder pressure. Again, like trying to reach a little bit here, locking good, okay? And the idea is to kind of glue your shoulder with your jawline there again and start making them look away from you. If you get this far and you like this control, I'm gonna start getting my knee on the belly, post the hand. When I post the hand that's controlling his head and arm goes to that tricep lat control. And now I'm gonna start driving my knee across. Once my knee gets to the mat there, once the kneecap touches the floor, touches the mat, I'm gonna start sliding my knee away from my shoulder, trying to get my hip as close to the mat as possible. Once I get full extension here, I'm gonna do one last little rotation. I'm gonna turn my hip and bounce right back up. And I'm in that high mount position. All right? So, let's see that again. We started off with this side control. We have a few nice entry submissions to go from here. But before I get the submission, maybe he's framing me at the neck here. So the concern here is that while I'm trying to go for these submissions, he has effectiveness with the frame trapping my neck, which is no good. I don't want to be there. So if I start feeling that frame, I look down, protect the soft tissue of my neck, pull that tricep up, get in a nice forward position here. You can go under. Good gable grip, right? And shoulder pressure. Again, the idea here is to make them look away from you. If that's the case, I'm going to continue with the mount. Post the hand, okay? I'm going to rotate a little bit here so you guys can see my leg work. I'm going to bring the knee on the mat, on the belly here. Post the hand. Remember, when you guys post the hand, this hand that's hugging the neck catches his lat, armpit area. That'll keep it nice and tight. Now drive the knee across. As far as you can, slide it away from your shoulder, and then boom. Look for your mount position right there. I'm already in a high mount position, so you can start getting those elbows up and go into that previous arm lock or other submissions that we've talked so far about from mount position. All right, let's go to the third setup over here. So setup number one, but now he frames at the neck. Maybe the guy has a very good guard retention, and if I stay here, he's very effective at moving his hips away and getting his knee in front of my waistline. So, if that's the case, I might want to go to that setup number three, where I hold the shoulder here, I bring the arm over, and I find my opponent's belt. I'll rotate. Find the belt here. Now at this moment, if the guy has a lot of good leg work, instead of just going right to the mat for the hip, I'm going to find the knee right away. Because if he tries to hip escape, I can pull the knee towards me. Or if he tries to bring the knee in front of my hip, I can push it away. So I can kind of control a little bit of his counters by controlling that leg. So now from here, I slide, I do a switch. So I switch my hips. And now in essence, instead of facing his head like I was before, I'm now facing his feet. Facing his hips and his feet. With a lot of forward pressure here. There's two nice mount variations here. One's very basic, but it's kind of cool. At this point, I'm gonna rotate. It's very hard for him because of my hip position, very hard for me to get this leg in front of my hip again. So if he tries to hip escape, I follow. I follow. So for him to get that guard recovery is practically impossible. So I start using this hand, I let go of the knee control, I use the hand on the outside of his knee, and I start turning him away from me. No one likes to do that because in essence, if I keep turning him that way, I start to expose his back. So when I go here, I use my hand to turn away. He wants to post his foot and reset himself to face me again. Exactly. And so I insist, stay there. I insist. Connect your feet. I go here, I push again. He resets. He's gonna fall for it. On the third one, I push again. And then when he tries to reset is when we send the leg over. That nice basic mount. But what makes it really nice is the timing. And selling it by getting him to want to look away first, by pushing his leg across, you know he's gonna reset. Anyone that knows jiu-jitsu is gonna reset right there. They're not gonna want to give up their back. So when they reset, be ready for that, send the foot over right away. So sequence, setup number one. Get back here, find the belt, control the knee. I sit through, okay? Another important detail here is that if I keep my hip too far away from him, it's hard to control his hip, so I actually want to bring my hip as close as I can to his hip. I actually slide it. I want to connect our hip joints together, hip to hip. And now that'll give me a lot of leverage to go here. He's gonna reset, perfect. I go again, he resets, I send the leg over. I can immediately start looking to immobilize the arm on this side if it's left alone, or I just underhook and finish off with a standard mount position to get the control there and then look to finish from the mount. All right. If there's any questions over there, feel free. Go ahead and put it in the text here in the chat room, and we can address it live. Or if you're not watching it live, you can put it in the comment section, and we'll address it, as soon as we see it when we can. All right. So we got one more little mount setup I want to kind of talk about today that goes off that. So transition one. We have a mount from here, knee on belly, post, drive. Look at my forehead go to the mat. My knee also goes to the mat. A good drive here. Clear the position. Bounce right back up. Another way to go from out instead of going from here is you go over, grab the belt. Got that grip. We go here now. And this is when we start focusing on the legs. First option, I just push his hips away. He faces me. I push his hips away. He faces me. All I want him to do is face me. The problem is if I don't do anything like this, he's completely ready for my mount. So if I don't sell the position and I just send the leg over, he's too ready, he's too comfortable to start elbow escaping on the other side. So when I go here, his elbow's gonna come in front of my leg, he starts elbow escaping, and I lost the mount. That's why that simple detail of pushing his knee away first, get him to react, push the knee away again, that'll sell the mount position. All right, so here, I want to go ahead and talk about a little bit about detail here is when we go from here, some things to think about when we start to face his hips. If the guy has a really long torso, again, if I stay over his shoulder a little bit, he can have a lot of framing potential and he can be very long and it's hard to control his whole body. So to cut his arm in half, I slide halfway down the arm. And I'd like to personally then grab the pant here. So this is very good, effective, but sometimes I've had cases where guys are like still getting effective frame here, making it harder for me to control. So I'll kind of cut his arm in half. And now the idea here is to keep this arm trapped. So I don't want to be loose to where he pulls his elbow out and can now push my shoulder. Start pushing my shoulder and right in the hips. I want to stay tight enough on that arm to where if he tries to pull the elbow out, the mat is blocking his escape route there. He cannot pull it out because of the mat. And at the same time, he can't frame effectively because his arm is cut in half. I'm folding him at the elbow. So now I start pushing the leg, mount all day. When you start anticipating, you go on the first one, he resets, you go on the first one. If you're still getting a little bit of confidence, you might go once, see his reaction, go twice, and then on the third one, he's gonna react the same way. It's money, okay? So one last mount attack I kind of want to leave here with you guys because it goes like pretty much hand in hand. Okay, so we'll be here, same setup. I grab the belt, find the pant, we sit through. When we're sitting in this position here, when we're facing the hips, again, I still don't want his elbow, his near side elbow. Let's rotate a little bit here, Chip. So you see his elbow here? I don't want to be on his frame because now he has a lot of ability to create space, again, and bringing the leg inside. So I want to make sure that his elbow is outside. If he tries to get his elbow inside of my hip, he cannot get it in front of my hip. My hip is glued to his hip. So he cannot get that elbow inside. Now, two things here. One, I can start creating space, moving my hip back. Rotate your move my hip back, and that makes a lot of space here. And a nice one, old school one, grab your own foot, bring it inside, and pass to mount position there. So they'll kind of be here. Maybe they'll get a little tired. Maybe the concern about going over is he gets you in a half guard. He extends his legs, traps, boom. Now you got to pass and do everything again. So he's here. Maybe he escaped that way the first time, so second time around you're like, I see you. You make adjustments, right? You gotta adapt. So you saw his mechanism. Now, on this one, you can grab your foot, bring it inside, right across his hip line, outside of reach of his half guard retention. And then the foot's already right there. Boom. And you come up that way. Okay? So these are all mechanisms. Push his knee away, mount. Maybe he's being calm here. You don't want to go over, so you get your foot, bring it inside, cleared across his belt line. Nice and tight there. Okay? And on the third one here, this one's kind of cool. This will probably be the last mount setup I show here. But this one was showed to me actually back in 2009. I was a brown belt. Damien Maya came to visit Hawaii when I was out there, and he actually used this one on me, and and it's been nice ever since. So we grab the pant here, okay? And a lot of people, I'm in this kind of control here that we're talking about, hip to hip, a lot of forward pressure. If I keep my weight back, I'm just gonna get bumped off. So don't let that be the case. I know I didn't talk about that too much, but I'm talking about it right now. In terms of weight distribution, my weight's forward. Here, I got my back leg as a posting point, pushing my weight forward, hip to hip. So no way you can just push me backwards. And this foot here, I personally, my dad always taught me, son, put the foot here on your thigh. And that's, I feel, the safest spot to put it. If you're only gonna put it at one spot and you're not gonna move too much, this would probably be the safest, in my opinion, place to put it. But you see all different kinds of things. You see this, you see this. This, you can trap the foot here, start to look for a little toe hold. You know? If he puts his foot, if he rests his own ankle across his thigh here, and I trap here, it's hard for him to extend the leg now because his leg is bent in a way, so for him to extend his leg, and then I start to kind of work here, and you start folding it into a toe hold. Won't always catch the guy, but it's a nice little trick that will make him think twice. So going back to the mount position here, I like to hold onto the pant like we talked about earlier, holding onto the pant and folding his arm in half. Here, a lot of forward pressure. And now he's doing the defense, perfectly right, no problem, good defense. But everything has its time, so that's an important lesson that we learn in life. Sometimes the right answer at the wrong time is the wrong answer. So the right answer can at one point be wrong if it's losing its time, the window of opportunity. So the right answer at the wrong time is the wrong answer. So here, I push the ankle, and then you trap it with the bottom leg. Rotate. Right there. And this is nice. It's a very high success rate. The initial thing that people think is that there's going to be a knee pressure. I'm not trying to go knee bar at all. You just use it to control a leg. One leg on one leg here. For him to extend this inside leg is practically impossible. And now I start getting forward pressure. My free hand finds the far knee, and I start to climb over. As my second hook goes over and comes in and starts to become a mount position hook, the inside leg retracts into high mount, and then I go both high mount. And you work both high mount. This one's very nice. Gi, no gi. You see Damian Maia fight a lot MMA, so obviously very effective there. And just a universal mount transition that's sneaky and very tight, very effective. So one thing, just kind of recapping what we're doing. We started here, this kind of control. We talked about a few submissions from here. But if he starts to frame, it's going to be hard to stay here forever. I'm going to eventually lose position. So I look down, balls on my feet, turn onto my knees. Okay? You can go shoulder pressure and start to mount from here. Okay? Pulse, down belly. Boom. Okay? Or you can continue on, look to mount from a different position. Come over, grab the belt. Try to find the belt only if possible. Find his knee. Okay, we talked about pushing the knee away when he resets. Send the leg over. Sometimes you're a little cautious about going the first time. You push it once, see his reaction. Push it again, see his reaction. You go on the third time, you know he's going to react. Boom, you go. Okay. 1, 2, and sequence number 3. So we're facing towards his head. We're now chest to chest. And on the third one, we're facing his legs. So there's a fluidity in between the hip movement there, keeping the position tight between all 3 transitions there. We got push the knee away. We got move the hip away a little bit, scoot it back, make space, grab your toes, bring it in front of his hip line, bring your foot inside. And then we also got a last nifty one, slide your hand down to the belt here, or the pant, the pant. Get your hip to hip. So I don't want to be up by his neck here. I want to get hip to hip, control his hip. Okay, make it very hard for him to hip escape and get guard retention. So if he tries to hip escape a little bit, I'm holding his knee. I'm holding his knee. He cannot get his knee in front of my hip. Get in front of my hip. I don't want this. This is no good. His knee's in front of my hip. He's going to take my back or get the guard. So here, and when I'm ready and my hip is close enough to his, I leave my leg long. Push his ankle. Catch it. That's the mechanism there. It's like a Venus flytrap. The trap is waiting. All right? The fly goes, touches the spring. Trap is on. One leg on one leg. The forward pressure is very important. Don't sit back here. Don't sit back. Stay forward. Use that back leg to push your weight forward. Block his leg. Okay? And then boom. Now you're going to climb your way and grind your way to the mount position. You can start setting up arm bars on the far side. Okay. Back mounts, arm bars, and chokes. But like anaconda, you're going to come and start riding your way up to that mount position. Any questions over there, Kevin? So, there's obviously multiple submissions that we can do from here. I didn't even really go into the submissions. I just mentioned the first 3 just to kind of give you a little submission just to think about. But this is more about maintaining the position you have and building it into something a little stronger to then go for your submissions. You know, Hal showed some submissions from the mount position a few classes back. You can go ahead and just plug in those pieces now to the mount position, and now you have your own little sequence. Pass guard to side control to mount, and finish it off with some submissions from the mount. So just here's more just kind of getting your hips. So sitting one way, getting back on your knees, controlling, and sitting the other way. It's all about just kind of switching the hips. You see a lot of times in the drill, we sit-throughs, sit-throughs, sit-throughs. It's a common drill, so that's kind of what's going on here. Sit-through, side control. On your knees, belly down. Sit through other way. Very effective movement. Should help you. maintain the top side control position. Thank you guys for joining us today. Have a good weekend.